Dark humor, also known as black comedy. It's a style of comedy that makes light of subject matter that is generally considered taboo, particularly subjects that are normally considered serious or painful to discuss. No, we're not talking about those people on Twitter or Instagram Reels who type a slur, think it's the funniest thing in the world, and then justify it by saying, "What, you can't handle dark humor, bro?" No, today we're talking about real dark humor. Actually, one of the best instances of dark humor in all of South Park. Parts of this episode are so shocking that you might actually feel bad for laughing at them. If that isn't dark humor, then I don't know what is. It's not the Woodland Christmas Critters or Scott Tenorman Must Die. Okay, why am I trying to make this all mysterious? Like, you guys have already seen the thumbnail. Yep, today we'll be exploring Season 11's episode, Cartman Sucks. You know, Season 11 is actually one of the best seasons in the entire show. I'm actually going to make a bold claim and call it my favorite season, which makes me pretty brave, because if I've learned a singular thing about South Park fans while making these videos, it's how wildly different your guys' opinions are. But seriously, Season 11 is awesome, with apologies to Jesse Jackson, the Tourette's episode, Imagination Land, Guitar Queero, the list. I look forward to reading your comments about how I'm wrong. Okay, we're getting off topic. Cartman Sucks. This episode involves everything that I love about the show. It discusses an extremely sensitive topic in sexuality and conversion therapy. It also shows us just how horribly stupid Cartman is capable of being. But most importantly, it has Butters. I mean, has there ever been a bad Butters episode? Before we get started, I'd like to remind you to check if you're subscribed. I know, don't hate me. It unfortunately works to ask that. With our intro out of the way, let's get into our episode analysis of Cartman Sucks.
Jesus, I can just say no and not be confused anymore.
The episode opens up with Cartman bragging to his friends about all the horrible things that he's done to Butters while he's asleep. He even has a scrapbook of all the times he's assaulted poor Butters, as if Butters needs more trauma in his life. One thing I do like about this scene is how Cartman shows a genuine interest in photography.
I really like how the light plays with the background on this one.
It's actually a running gag throughout the series that would be pretty easy to miss, but in multiple episodes, Cartman is actually insanely passionate about this hobby, and for no other reason than Trey Parker thinks it's funny. Eric goes on to explain that everything he has done so far pales in comparison to the plan he has prepared for Butters tonight. Just as Eric is about to tell the boys his plan, Butters shows up for the sleepover. As they're about to leave, Kyle makes an attempt to tell Butters that he's being taken advantage of. Cartman, of course, manipulates the situation and makes Butters think that Kyle is jealous. And the boys leave, annoyed knowing that Cartman is going to do something terrible. Eric is so eager to execute this plan that he suggests they go to sleep already, and even acts like a little Bill Cosby offering Butters sleeping medicine.
No means no, Bill Cosby!
The next day, Cartman sprints to the bus stop, probably the most excited he's ever been in his entire life. He enthusiastically tells the boys he has the greatest picture of all time.
And then I took a picture of his wiener in my mouth.
This highlights how clueless Cartman can be at times. Despite his manipulating, his executing genius-level plans, and appearing knowledgeable about many mature subjects, he still misses the mark fairly often. Somehow, Cartman thought this was the ultimate getting Butters moment. I always like to try to give you guys fun facts about these episodes. Matt and Trey actually had the idea for this all the way back in Season 6 during the Aspen skiing episode.
I don't know what season it was, but years ago when we did the show about Aspen and skiing, part of that show, Cartman's kind of messing with Butters while he sleeps. You know, where that story went was that while they were in Aspen, Cartman's like, you guys, I did the ultimate. While Butters was asleep, I put my dick in his mouth and took a picture. We cut the whole scene out.
Cartman thinks that what he did makes Butters gay. The boys quickly let Eric know that it actually makes him gay. Also, I love when Kenny gets lines that you can clearly understand.
Kenny, that doesn't make me gay, huh?
Kyle takes this opportunity to mess with Cartman some more, telling him the only way to reverse, and I quote, the gay polarity is to...
The only way you can cancel it out is to get Butters to put your wiener in his mouth.
This is one of those episodes where even if you like Cartman, you just can't help but enjoy watching him panic about all this. So Cartman rushes to go find Butters. He is obviously desperate to make himself not gay anymore. He tricks the gullible Butters with a blindfold, and it gives us one of the more uncomfortable scenes in all of South Park.
I swear on my mother's life, Butters, I'm not going to stick anything yucky in your mouth.
Can we just leave poor Butters alone? Hasn't he been through enough by now? Just as he's about to do the deed, Steven walks in on them and is horrified to see what is taking place. Cartman then runs off and Steven, of course, takes the whole incident out of context. He then tells Butters that he isn't gay, he's just bi-curious. Steven would know a thing or two about being bi-curious. No, not bike-curious. We already covered that episode. Butters is obviously confused, and this confusion will be a running theme throughout this episode, but basically, Butters is just too innocent to know what is happening here or what Cartman was even attempting to do. Steven takes Butters to Father Maxey, who suggests that Butters be sent away to Camp New Grace, which is a conversion camp, where the idea is to pray the gay away. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Meanwhile, Cartman shows up to Kyle's house to call him out on the false information that he gave him. He pretty much begs the boys not to tell anyone about the incident. Kyle then offers him a deal.
Okay, we won't tell anybody as long as you're super nice to us every day from now on.
Oh, right, like that's possible.
This is an underrated part of the episode. The fact that Cartman doesn't even consider that he could be nice to them is just hilarious and shows exactly the kind of person he is. Alright, now we're getting to the beef of this episode, the conversion camp. I guess I'll start by explaining what conversion therapy actually involves. It's a practice that uses any attempt to alter a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. Most cases involve people under 18, often pushed into it by their parents. The main reason is typically religious beliefs that oppose homosexuality. The methods they use to convert someone's sexuality can range from basic talk therapy to extremely abusive aversion techniques. There is horror stories all over the internet of people being forced substances that make them nauseous and then try to relate that to any homosexual feelings. In some historical cases, they even performed lobotomies in an attempt to fix sexuality. Conversion therapy can cause significant long-term psychological harm. This includes significantly higher rates of depression, substance abuse, and plenty of other mental health issues. Nearly every single study done on this shows that it has caused more harm than any type of shift in sexuality. The people who are pro-conversion therapy have absolutely no evidence other than personal claims, usually saying, well, I cured a patient who is no longer homosexual, which is funny, considering those patients were probably just tired of being lab rats. As of December 2023, 28 different countries have bans on conversion therapy. Now that we have a basic understanding of what it is, let's use this information as a reference moving forward. So Butters arrives at Camp New Grace totally unaware of what's really going on. He genuinely thinks it's just a summer camp, which again highlights his innocence. The camp leader gives Butters a tour. He tells him that every camper gets an accountability buddy. This is to make sure they don't engage in bi-curious behavior.
But now he's learning that with the power of Christ and prayer, he can have a whole new life.
This is one of the most shocking scenes in South Park's history, yet there's very little controversy surrounding it. I mean, an episode where they said shit 162 times or made fun of Scientology got 1,000 times more backlash than elementary school children literally unaliving themselves. Why is that? Well, this isn't satire. This is what conversion therapy can actually lead to. South Park was able to deliver this dark humor in a way that exposes the truth behind this practice. It might have offended some people, sure, but the overall message is not only true, but opens eyes to the horrors of conversion therapy. And don't worry, you're not a bad person if you laughed at this scene. Shock value combined with the delivery of it makes it a fun, uncomfortable laugh. Fact time. Matt and Trey actually had an entirely different plot for this episode. In the camp was only supposed to take around 2 minutes of the episode. The other plot involved Butters' dad finding him at a rave during the camp and doing a bunch of wild things to try and turn him straight after discovering this, such as hiring a prostitute in Mexico. Once they actually did their research on conversion camps, they decided this was a much better emotional story. Butters is given a new accountability buddy and we meet Bradley. Him randomly quoting scriptures always cracks me up.
Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. That is detestable. Leviticus 18:22.
By the way, Bradley is just Trey doing Stan's voice while biting his nails. I found this interesting. Also, I'm pretty sure he's based on Billy Bibbit from the 1975 film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I can't find Matt or Trey confirming this, but it's listed as a reference on the wiki, so it's worth mentioning. Meanwhile, we learn that Cartman lost the picture of him performing a fellatio. He threatens Kyle to give the picture back, and Kyle lets him know that he doesn't have it. Cartman obviously won't accept this, and he gets ready to fight after calling Stan and Kenny Jews, thinking that they're covering for Kyle.
Ow! Ow! Ah!
They never miss an opportunity to make Cartman look completely soy when it comes to anything physical. We then meet our next one-off character, Pastor Phillips, whose homosexuality was cured with the hand of Christ and prayer.
Hello, campers!
Yeah, I don't think anyone needs the joke explained here. He goes on to give a speech about how he's no longer gay. Yeah, not even the children bought that one, buddy. It's likely Pastor Phillips is loosely based on a real-life pastor named Ted Haggard.
What we should think about homosexual activity, it's written in the Bible.
Who was exposed in 2006 for smoking meth and doing butt stuff. Basically, he was preaching about homosexuality and openly fighting gay marriage during the day while hooking up with dudes at night. He went to conversion therapy for this and claimed he was cured. You know, until he was outed a couple years later for hooking up with dudes again. After the assembly, Butters and Bradley get called to the office and get in trouble because Bradley was hiding an underwear catalog. Butters is just confused and doesn't see what's wrong with underwear, bless his heart. The camp leader goes on to say how he's doing his best to try and save all the kids from their urges and facing eternal hellfire. Yeah, definitely saving those kids. The next scene shows Cartman going to the police, telling them that Kyle stole his picture. He then has to explain what the picture is of.
You were sucking somebody's penis.
No, I was not.
Yates tells him that they would need time to get a warrant, and Cartman says that he doesn't have time because Kyle's gonna show the picture to everyone at school tomorrow. Cartman is freaking out, and he decides that he needs to bring his mom in to help with this situation. Eric tells her the truth. Kind of.
Butters got really hot, so he pulled his pajama bottoms down, and then I tripped and fell down, and my mouth landed right on his penis.
The clip is actually like 3 times longer than that, but, you know, copyright. The way Cartman tries to explain how it happened is one of the funnier parts of this episode. Anyways, Leanne ends up calling Kyle's mom. Honestly, her bluntness here needs to be respected.
Apparently, your son has a picture of Eric with another boy's penis in his mouth.
She assures Eric that Kyle doesn't have the picture, which Cartman simply cannot accept. Back at the camp, Butters has a wholesome interaction with Bradley, where they admit that they like each other, except Butters has no idea that Bradley is talking about, you know, liking him. Bradley realizes this is a problem. He's now in too deep, and reacts in true conversion therapy fashion.
We're just evil and nothing can change us. There's no other way out, Butters. We have to ourselves.
Bradley is contemplating unaliving. God, I hate saying that, but YouTube, you know, yeah, whatever. Something that I probably haven't talked about enough is how religion in most of these places warps their view on things. Obviously, not all conversion therapy tactics are religion-based, but the ones that are teach you that being gay is quite literally evil. They really try to put it in your head that being gay makes you an abomination of God, and it's your choice to change that. Yeah, it's no wonder this shit leads to life-altering psychological trauma, because what happens when you can't change? In true South Park fashion, Butters gives a speech that is actually a pretty good outlook on sexuality.
I wasn't confused until other people started telling me I was.
The thing is, he still doesn't know that the confusion they're talking about even has to do with sexuality, but it really resonates with Bradley, and he decides to come down. Something I'll never really understand is how some LGBTQ people think that South Park is homophobic. Like, how could anyone watch this and not tell that Matt and Trey are supportive about this topic? I'm probably overthinking it, and it's probably as simple as the ones who do think like this just choose to be offended before they they even watch it, but I find a lot of posts complaining about LGBTQ related stuff in South Park when I research for these videos. I guess I'm just thinking out loud here. The storyline ends with Steven half-heartedly accepting Butters for who he is.
No, I like being bi-curious.
Well, you know something? So do I.
Wait, now I am confused.
Ah yes, now for one of my favorite scenes in all of South Park. So basically Cartman has accepted the fact that Kyle is gonna show the picture to everyone. He decides that his best option is to just show the picture himself, with the idea that it will at least take some of Kyle's satisfaction away from him. This is a prime example of how Cartman can be extremely impulsive. Like, if he just sat and thought about Kyle's character for a second, it's not really something Kyle would actually do. But Cartman has such a warped view, because if the roles were reversed, Cartman would definitely show the picture. He starts to show his photography collection and make sure to imply every picture has some deeper meaning. When finally...
What this is a statement against the war in Iraq.
And just when you think the episode couldn't end in a more perfect way...
Do not show picture. Kyle didn't have it after all. Found it under your desk.
This is the ultimate Eric facing karma moment, mostly because it could have been prevented about 100 different ways. But his self-sabotaging and skewed perception of Kyle causes him to destroy himself. This episode actually made it into the top 20 of all time. I personally have it in my top 10. One thing that separates this episode is how there isn't really an A and B story like there usually is. As this episode progresses, both stories could be considered the A story, which is a pretty hard thing to accomplish. Another episode that on its surface looks pretty controversial and offensive, but actually has a decent meaning behind it. If you guys made it to this point in the video, I'm afraid you have to like the video now. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.